Last night on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. All right, it's our GMCCR tweet of the night, and this made it official. When Burt Lawton tweets something, you know it can be absolutely not disputed. And this is TJ Watt, independent neurological consultant, says it's no longer necessary for him to be in concussion protocol. Alex Highsmith remains there, and we'll find out what happens with the rest of that. But again, that game is on Saturday. We have a pregame at 11:30 a.m. on Saturday. So what we normally do on Sunday, we'll do on Saturday. Post-game afterwards, it's a 4:30 kickoff from Lucas Oil Stadium. And Chris, if I had to ask you one team from this bunch of 7-6 teams that you would look at and say, I think this team can go on a run. First of all, I'm buying Denver. I think Denver is hot, and I think Russell Wilson has returned to Seattle form when he was doing some great things there, and Sean Payton deserves a lot of credit. I think they and Buffalo are two teams I would keep an eye on.
I'm considering putting in a small, responsible wager for Buffalo right now, even though they still got a brutal schedule left, a tough run with Dallas this week. I think Buffalo can win the Super Bowl. As a matter of fact, if they get into the AFC playoffs, I think they're the team to beat, as crazy as that sounds. So I think Buffalo is my clear choice here. Denver, I'm kind of buying Denver. I think Denver's the best case version of the Steelers, where their defense is playing pretty well. Their quarterback's playing mostly turnover free, but also actually throwing some touchdowns. I'm a little bit lukewarm on them because I still think that formula runs its course in the playoffs. I think Josh Allen can light it up. So I think from the 7-6 bunch, they're number one. And I'll tell you what, I know that the Browns are 8-5, so this doesn't count, but they seem dangerous as long as Flacco's upright. And Jake Browning and the Bengals, I don't know. They've got a little, what would Bob Prince call it, a little hidden vigorish with that team. He doesn't really look like he's missed a beat. They've brought him in to replace Joe Burrow, and they're still running their normal offense. But to answer your question, for me, it's Buffalo, and it's clearly Buffalo of those 7-6 squads.
All right, it's going to be one thing about the NFL. It may be mediocre football throughout, and there's no one-star team in the AFC, but it is interesting, and it will be interesting all the way until the end. Let's go to the lines. Chris, we have Rich in California who joins us on line one. What's up, Rich?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we've seen Deontay and Pickens take plays off. We've heard Najee complaining in the media, and now we've heard Minka in the media. Do you think the Coach Tomlin has lost the locker room? And if so, do you think there's any way he's going to get it back?
That's a good question. I'll tell you this. It's closer to losing it than I've remembered in recent years. I don't think you've seen players come out the way they have here. And even Ben Roethlisberger's come out on a podcast and suggested some things. So, Chris, I would think that Minka Fitzpatrick represents, I think, the veterans on this team who don't like what's going on. There are those who believe it should be the coach's responsibility for changing that, but there are others who believe it should be the players, the veteran players. They have a young offense. They don't have any really established leaders on that offense. What is your take on who's more responsible?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily the coach's responsibility to do this. I think Mike Tomlin has always liked to let his veterans police the locker room. I do think Minka speaks loudly for that Watt, Minka, Hayward kind of group, and maybe the rest of the veterans, like the silent guys. You don't hear Allen Robinson too much, but I think he would be annoyed by some of the antics. In Harris's case, I think Najee, the way he plays in a given game or is used in a given game, directly informs what he's going to say. I think he's very mercurial in that way. And then with Pickens and Deontay Johnson, I think it's very simple here, Bob. I think one of the reasons you're seeing this right now is they haven't gotten good enough quarterback play. Majority of it from Pickett, now some of it from Trubisky. One of the reasons you didn't have these kinds of blow-ups, even when AB was here, was because the quarterback play was good enough that guys were mostly happy on offense, even though they had big egos. You had Bell, you had Bryant, you had AB. Well, Ben was getting them all the ball in ways that they were all happy with. And so as much as I think people want to paint the narrative or put it out there that, oh, he's lost the locker room, the real reason there's discontent there is because they're simply not playing well enough, and that starts to grate on guys after a while.
Let's go out to Harry in Westview, who joins us right now on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. What's up, Harry?
Hey, good evening, guys. Hey, I disagree with you, Pop, as far as overtime goes, and agree with Malsey. I just think I get too tired playing 3-on-3, and I like having the one-on-one thing with the goalie at the end of the game. And the other thing is, I just sometimes think that common sense prevails. Having a big guy in front of the net is paying off. And they got the old guy in front of there with no teeth. He just looks like the fart.
Looks like Jack Lambert on skates when Jack was toothless, whatever the word is. He would take him out and he'd scare people. Jeff Carter isn't that way, but Jeff Carter is a guy who has good hands still, and he's a big body, and he knows how to deflect pucks. We saw one last night. I've always thought that's a nice asset to have on a power play, and for a long time the Penguins didn't do that. I don't know if they're going to consistently do it moving forward, but why not? That and shoot the puck and cause havoc, Chris. That's kind of how you break down defenses.
Well, some of the most lethal power plays I've watched in the last 15 years have featured that same thing, a big guy. The Penguins with Hornquist, who wasn't big but played big. For people of a certain age, I guess I'm saying that some of our audience is very young here when I say this, but Tomas Holmstrom in Detroit was a nightmare in front of the net. Johan Franzen, Bob, was the same way. I know you know that. I know a lot of our viewers know that. To me, it's common sense. You have to have, and I think anybody would tell you this in the NHL, goalies are by and large good enough that even against an elite skill power play like the Penguins can trot out there, if they can see the puck, they're going to stop the puck more often than not. I just think, like the caller said there, it's a common sense thing. Jeff Carter doesn't need to play a ton of minutes at 5-on-5. I'd continue using him in that capacity because I think it makes them a lot more dangerous.
I totally agree. I mean, you can't stop sometimes what you can't see, and if you deflect it and a goalie has no chance, that's the way you do it. These goalies are too sharp. I don't care which one you're talking about. They're all capable of making the first save. Mickey in Peters Township, you're up, Mickey. What's up?
Hey, Bob. Hey, Chris. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, I just want to know, does Erik Karlsson really want to play for the Penguins? He is a shootout, and who takes a slap shot in front of the goalie? That's really a ridiculous kind of shot. And
Well,
I love
perhaps.
it. I got no
Listen what I'll
problem
say
with
about
it.
Erik Karlsson. I think he's putting up numbers, but he hasn't had the direct impact on this team that you would have expected, meaning points in the standings. I mean, maybe it's too early. I don't know how long it takes for someone like that to get it. They went out, and the good thing about that trade, more than anything else, is they were able to get rid of people they didn't want, Chris. So they brought in a guy like that. Okay, 4 years, what is it, 10 million or so left on his contract?
Yeah, 10 or 11 million.
All right, at some point, if you're not satisfied, there's a team will be interested. You may be able to
I
figure out a way out.
I don't think he's really a problem for them. I think their power play has made people so crazy, and I know he's supposed to be quarterbacking that, but I think he's sort of fallen victim to the rest of them just being so in love with their own way of passing the puck. But I don't think Erik Karlsson's the problem at all. I think he's going to be a reason that they make a run if they do make a run. And by the way, the slap shot directly in front of the goalie, I'm sorry, that is objectively a hilarious thing to do. I remember Malkin doing it against the Flyers, I think, in a game.
Yes. Well,
Yeah, he got the puck.
steamed up. He came down, he cranked one up from about 3 feet away. I remember.
Right. It wasn't in the 2012 playoffs or
Yes,
something. He got
it was-
sprung on a breakaway, came in, and just basically stopped and shot the puck as hard as he could, and it went in, and it was one of the funniest things I have ever seen in a hockey game. I got no problem with that, especially in a shootout.
I agree. All right, real quick, I want to throw this out at you before we go, and that would be the NFL is considering changing the rule. That is, if you're an offensive player, you lose possession, and it rolls out of the end zone, you lose possession as an offense. Defense gets. I'm hoping they do that. I never liked that rule. Listen, I realize sometimes defensive people make mistakes, make plays. The ball's jarred loose, but you shouldn't be able to lose possession on a fumble out of the end zone when no one recovers it. Do you think that's a rule that you like, or would you change it?
There's a part of me that wants to go old school here and say the goal line is sacred and you have to treat it as such for both parties. It heightens the stakes, but the basic part of my brain just says it's so dumb. It's so completely the opposite of how a fumble gets treated at any other part of the field that overrides the goal line is sacred vibe, and I do wish it would get changed.
Yeah, a lot of guys, lunge for the pylon, and if you do, you're trying to make a play. No one touches you, the ball comes out, you lose it. And so you lose possession. That seems very harsh as a punishment.
They'll probably amend the rule because it's a rule that ultimately helps offense, which I think we know the NFL tends to love to do more often than not. Always that's what they want to do.
And if you want to get your opinion heard, don't forget to tune in to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call tonight at 10:35 on KDKA+. So give us a call at 412-575-2600. We do it every night after the 10 o'clock news. For CBS News Pittsburgh, I'm Bob Pompeani.